Alright, so here's what we're up to so far. If we have a look at our model, this is what we have gotten out of ZRemesher. And you can see that we have the 16,652 points, which will equal an approximate number of polygons, or approximate number of quads. I'll say that again, approximate number of quads. Now, as I said in the last video, that is rather high, because that will double when we triangulate our mesh to bring it into UDK. Also, if we wanted to, say, reduce the polygons in these arms and these legs, we have a bit of a problem. Actually, I'll show you one thing that you can use in ZBrush to try and reduce the number of edge loops that you have, and that's with the Delete Edge Loops tool. And that's under your Geometry menu. If we come down here, and I'll just close ZRemesher and open up the Edge Loop menu, you can see that we have all the brilliant new tools that we've got in 4R6. Right down the bottom we've got Delete Loops. Now I think the angle is usually set to 45, not sure. But if we hit Delete Loops, you'll notice that there are some changes in our mesh. Firstly, if you look at the waist here and this bottom of the chest, the actual shape, it's decided that these are enough loops to define this body. And you'll also notice down here at the ankles, or the foot, the arch of the foot, depending on how you want to think of it, those have also been simplified quite a bit. I think maybe a little bit too much, and you'll notice that the toe as well here has just turned into basically a cone. And we've also lost a lot of edge loops in the fingers here. Now if you wanted to, you can, like most tools, mask out areas and hit Delete Loops, and it will only affect the areas that are unmasked. You can see that the body is still unaffected. Now you will notice that the legs and the arms aren't affected by Delete Loops. There is a button here for partial edge loops, and if we click that on, that means that it doesn't have to be a complete ring around the object. It can in fact be mostly a ring around the object, or it can be sort of like, say you've got a line here which is defined along this point that sort of ends at these sorts of stars. It will try and fix up sort of geometry so that it is still all quads, but it will delete that sort of loop, even though it's not a loop in the sense that it goes right around the object. So with partial clicked or selected, hit Delete Loops, and I think maybe it affects more of the hand, I'm not sure. Essentially it looks pretty much the same as when we had the button switched off. I think maybe that toe might be, actually it might be exactly the same. At any rate, you can see that it's still not affecting these legs, and these calves here should definitely be affected by that. Maybe if we turn the angle up, nope, that doesn't work either. Now the reason for this, you can see that the horns definitely get affected. In fact, if we actually undo and take the angle way down, I like to use an angle of about 10, and then hit Delete Loops. You can see that it deletes loops a lot more sort of reluctantly. You can see that the fingers are still okay. and most of the shape pretty much needs these loops to be defined anyway, but you can see that the horns didn't need those loops, and so it deleted those out. Now, the reason that our arms and legs aren't getting affected, and I'm sure that there are people yelling out the answer already, is that these are not a set of separate loops. We've got our old friend, the spiral edge loop. And if we go up to our tool menu and we make sure that the subtool that we're working on is visible and click on the Go Z Visible button, which I've already done, so we don't have to load up Maya. Here is our model. If we select him, you can see that there's our mesh. Now if we go to the what's it called? Component type. It's been so long. And go to the edges or line components. And we come in here and let's double click on this line here. You can see that, yep, we've got a spiral all the way down the arm. And he's also wearing a nice pair of leggings. That is all one line, all the way down. Now, what you can do is do what I did a few videos ago. I think the video was something like how to fix ZRemesh problems. And that video shows us how we can go in there and we can actually use the zipper method in order to collapse polygons or collapse quads diagonally in order to fix up these sorts of loops. But there are other options that we can do. For starters, I think that we can probably do better than the 16K polygons that we've got, or 16K points. And in Maya we can confirm that we do have 16,650 faces and double that in triangles. So we can do better. And again, one of the main problems, one of the main offenders is this sort of face here. So there are two things that I want to show you that we're going to try to do. I'm just going to Control Z back to before I ZRemeshed. And what I'll do is with standard, turn off Z add, take this down to 30, make sure I'm on white, and I'm just going to go to color and fill object twice. Now that means that we've got a lot less influence from our Polypaint in the ZRemesh options. So I'm just going to go back to ZRemesh, and again, these are the same sort of settings that we had before with our polygon count at 4. Use Polypaint is switched on. So let's see what result we get. Okay, so this is our result, and I'm going to hit Shift F. You can see that we already have perhaps better spacing out of polygons here in the face, because previously that was really quite heavy, and it was perhaps too heavy. We didn't need that many polygons to create a good silhouette. Just as long as we have this many polygons to animate, if we did any facial animations or blend shapes. And you can see that our edge flow is working quite well. If we come to our points, you can see that we've dropped quite a few. So what has it done to our edge loops? Well, let's go back to Go Z and hit visible. Okay, now just be aware that whenever you hit go Z, it will open up another copy of Maya, or at least it does for me. For you, it might be different, but that will work to our advantage because we are going to compare the models. You can see that the faces have dropped down, and if we zoom in, so what did that do for our spiral edge loops? Well, let's have a look. Again, going component mode and line components. Okay, well, let's check the legs first. And oh, our legs, it looks like it's fixed. So let's check the arms. Fingers crossed. No, the arms are not fixed. But we can go in here and we can alter these legs now. So if we go back to ZBrush with our model there, let's come back down to edge loop, and with an angle of 10, let's see what delete loops does. You can see that we do get those carves that I was worried about in particular are fixed up, and we lose a couple from this area here. Again, our arms are unaffected. So what we can do now that we've taken these edge loops out is that we can actually come in here, and if we draw a mask here and here, and I just soften that mask and I'll reverse it, we can come down to our deformation and we can just hit the relax. About 7 should do, maybe again. And you can see that now we have got better spacing. And it looks like I might want to come in here and relax this just a little bit, just to get that back into sort of shape. Like that. So you can see that we get better sort of placement that way. Now I'm just going to undo back. If we wanted to go nuts, you can see that we can basically straighten out the whole leg. And also remember that there is a way to just align loops, which gives you the shape of if you had deleted the loops but doesn't actually delete the loops. And so that straightens that leg out, but it basically relaxes all of the polygons along that leg anyway. Now with the arms, we can do those in Maya and sort of use the zipper method again. What I'm going to do, and I won't save that, is actually go back again and with our poly paint done, I'm going to fill it one more time and see if that gets the effect that I'm looking for. Okay, so let's have a look now. Again, make sure we go Z with the visible. Okay, so here we are. And again, Go to component mode, line, see what we get now. Alright, we get the same. And the legs are still fixed. Now, the reason that I was going backwards and forwards between ZBrush and Maya is that sometimes you get a double spiral around an object, and unfortunately it didn't really show us the double spiral in this example. But if that occurs, if you find that you get a double spiral, which means that you have a spiral like this, but when you select one of these edges, like so, it actually selects only every second line down and leaving the other alternate lines unselected. That means that there are two spirals going down the arm. Now, when that occurs, you can still use the zipper method, but you have to do it twice. You have to do it once in order to get it back to this single spiral method, the single spiral edge loop, and then you have to do it again to get it back to the concentric or parallel sort of edge loops. So just to be aware that that might happen. But, and you can see that we are down to 12K polygons here. But I am not going to stick with this model. The thing that you have to remember is that there's always another way to do things, and there's always something more that you can sort of try. So I'm just going to go back a couple of these. Might actually go one more, because I think that that's enough color to define our character. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to our ZRemesher. I'm going to take the target polygons count down to 1. Now, you won't be shocked to learn that you will not get 1,000 polygons out of this. But we will get a lower number than the 12K that we have been getting. So let's give it a go. So what did that give us? It gave us this guy. Now, the first thing right off the bat is that you can see that our thighs are a lot less dense than, say, the knees, but we've still got enough mesh to define where they join onto the body. We also have less geometry in this sort of bicep area and in this forearm area, but enough at the elbow, enough at the shoulder here, and enough at our face. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can have a look at the face. We still have an edge loop around our eye, and we still have the face following that line there. Now, if anything, we may have erred on the side of caution, because we perhaps have fewer edge loops than we need in order to get this character to work. And if we look at our polygon or our active points, we are down to 7,000. So you're looking at a 14,000 triangle character, which is great. That's great for a non-primary character, which is sort of how I sort of imagine this guy anyway. Now, if we do need to introduce more edge loops, that is a fairly simple process, which I am hopefully going to remember how to do. If we hide this area, making sure we don't get any of the arm, and zoom in here, and I'll make sure that I angle this down so we don't get rid of anything that we don't want to get rid of. You can see that that is a loop there, or that is a sort of complete loop edge to our geometry there. We can now come up to edge loop and hit edge loop there, and we introduce an edge loop there. We can now also come down to visibility, and we can grow, and if we wanted to, we can edge loop again and grow, and you can use the Control-Shift-X in order to do that, and edge loop again. And now we can bring it all back, and again, to get the placement better, we can just sort of come in here, and I'm just going to actually paint this mask on here and around here, and again soften that out a little bit, then come down to deformation and relax like so, and you can see now we have got more of that area there. And what I'm going to do is select this, and I'm going to Control Shift and X, and edge loop, Control Shift X, edge loop, and I'm just going to mask that area, bring everything back, and soften that mask out a little bit and invert it, and again hit relax. And you can see that now we've introduced a heck of a lot of edge loops there, and we've increased our polygon count, or our points, a little bit, but not too much. Now we can go to our groups, our poly groups, and just group visible again, and just do that a couple of times. I want a nice lighter sort of color, that'll do, and frame up on everything, and you see I've introduced more polygons there than I need to again, but this is basically just for demonstration purposes. And relax. Cool. Okay, and when you have introduced back the number of edge loops that you want, and you want to get some of the shape closer to the original, remember that we have got the original ZRemesh character there, and just project all so that we get that shape back with the geometry. And now if we actually hit Go Z, and I hit the Go Z button, not the visible button, we'll see what happens. It's a deliberate mistake. Okay, here we are, and you'll notice that it has still only brought across the visible subtools. So, zooming in now. Let's see how we go with the edge loops. If we zoom in and click on this guy. Damn, I had one that worked before using the same settings, and it actually created concentric edge loops. But it doesn't really matter because our polygon count now is so low in these areas, and it is so defined by joints that we don't actually need to come into Maya and delete these edge loops. In fact, if we're going to delete any edge loops, it's maybe these ones that I've been too eager to sort of bring back in. So I will just delete that out, delete that out, and should I go one more? Yeah, why not? Delete that out. And now, if we go back to Go Z, you can see that the actual character has lost those edge loops there. And so again, we can just come in here and just where we've sort of got those spaces, we can relax like that. Might be a bit too much, or at least goes up a little bit too much here. So I'm just going to increase the mask up here on the chest, where we don't need these to spread back to. And again, I'm going to show this subtool and project, just to get that shape back in. So now that's a fairly decent mesh to start off a character with. But what I might do is actually come back in to before we remeshed and introduce a groove into the eye. Or no, actually, I might actually do that with a with the appended Z-sphere mesh. So I'll show you how to do that right now. We can clone this tool, and if we have a look, that's the cloned off subtool. So go back to, wow, that's an old one. Go back to this guy, and then with the Z-sphere subtool selected, and we can hide this, we can go right down the bottom to topology and select topology and just go for this guy, and you can see that the polygons in the readout of 7169, so that's our guy, We'll click on him. And now it's updated the actual mesh that we are remeshing with our Z-sphere. And we'll bring back our Dynamesh. You can see is that, and I'll bring a color down a bit. That is our remeshed character, like so. And you can find that you will need to bring down the polygon count for this character in order to reintroduce it with the Z-sphere appended retopology method, because I found that, I'm not sure if it's the same with all systems, but I couldn't append, or I couldn't choose geometry that was higher than 15,000 polygons. So our original mesh wouldn't have worked. But what we can do in those situations is actually cut it in half and then re-weld it once we have done our topology. But there we go. Now we have a much better starting mesh to start with, and we can go in with Z-sphere retopology and maybe introduce eyelids and a mouth if we wanted to. And yeah, our character is off to a good start. Thanks for watching.